Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this webinar that is about steel member mapping between Revit and advanced steel. Revit is a modeling package for BIM where we set up a matchstick model which we can transmit to advanced steel for manufacturing. And the other platform that works together with Revit is Robot, which we will look at in another webinar. But the most important thing is that we have these two models, the Revit model and the advanced steel model, and they are able to communicate with each other, or we are able to update one model with the information from the other model. And we'll look at that this morning. On the agenda is how to export from Revit to the SMLX file. That is a file format that is a steel markup language file. And within that steel markup language file, it's a compressed file. Within that compressed file, there is an XML file, which contains the information that is then transmitted to the database of the advanced steel. So that's the SMLX file. Then how to import this SMLX file into advanced steel. We'll see that when importing, we can assign member mapping on the import, and we can export from advanced steel to SMLX, and we can import that again into Revit. So it is a two-way process. Then we can also synchronize between Revit and advanced steel. And then we'll have a look at some of the further database considerations with regards to this workflow. And just to note that there's a lot more advanced workflows when you are dealing with custom shapes. We won't be looking so much at that today, but understanding the platforms is very important if you are going to be doing some advanced steel work. Right, so how to export from a Revit to SMLX. The first thing to do is to install your app. So you'll go to your Autodesk account, accounts.autodesk.com, and you'll sign in, and then you'll go to your products and services, and it's from the products and services page that we'll be downloading, or that you would download the add-in for advanced steel and for Revit. Sometimes it doesn't work the first time you install, and you should install, I think it's a Microsoft component from 2010. That's easy to do. So if you do get an error that your Revit is crashing when you try and export the SMLX, contact us and we'll assist you with that quickly. It's very simple. You download something from the Microsoft website, and that is where you will find the database components, the .NET database components for 2010. You'll find it under the Revit that you are installing. In this case, I'm working still with 2022. Most people work a year behind with Revit. And on the updates and add-ons, this is where you will look for the advanced steel add-in for Revit. So we can see that the 2023 version is out recently, but you'll also find the 2022 version, or whichever version you are working with there. You'll also see that there's one for Robot, and that is important when we are working with the finite element analysis for the Revit model, where we are exporting that into Robot. Alright, so you'll download the add-in from your account, and after installation you'll find that it has been installed under your add-ins tab, under the advanced steel extension. There are some settings that you should pay attention to. The first one is this path to a library. That is helping the software to index steel members that might be contained within your library. You'll see it's pointing to C drive, program data, Autodesk, RVT 2022, and then libraries. That is the default installation of Revit. If you have downloaded the content packs for South Africa, you'll find that in the libraries, under your English libraries, which you've installed, you'll also find the South African libraries. You could, of course, be working in any other country in the world, in which case you would download the relevant country content. So to do that, if you go to your Autodesk, your Revit version, and then content download, you'll be directed to a page where you can download Revit content, and whichever country you are from, you can then download the relevant content. And you'll see there's Brazil, Portuguese, Chinese, Czech, French, German, Italian. In our case, we've got international South Africa, but lots and lots of content that you can download from here. And the reason why that's important is that there are specific steel members within these libraries, and they correspond to the sections that you'll be able to purchase from a steel supplier. You'll see under SA specific, under the columns, there you'll find your different sizes for your steel. Now these are standard for the industry within your country, or it should be, and therefore it's a good idea to use them. This RVT 2022 folder, Romeo Victor Tango 2022 folder, is in a hidden file or folder called program data, and that is on C drive. And for you to be able to browse this library, you have to go to your view tab and enable the hidden items within Microsoft's file browser. And just a word of caution that your Revit interface will also hide that path unless you specify that you want to see hidden items on your Windows browser. So that's an important thing to remember. So here we have the path to all of the libraries really, and what the app will do is it will index, very much like the internet is indexed, or databases are indexed. It will prepare a fast referencing system for the software in the background. So it's a bit of preparatory work that's done for the mapping of steel members between the packages. And in this case, if you had a company library in which your steel sections or your custom steel sections were kept, you would then also add another path so that you can then point towards your company library. Then you can choose how to export. Export based on view settings, disable join for beams on import, export grids if you want to see those grids, and ignore beam cutbacks and extensions on import. Okay. Pretty self-explanatory, but there is a bit of help also that you can go to within Revit. So if you did want to get some help on the subject, just go to your Revit help. It's a very powerful help within Revit, and then search for advanced steel export, and there you will find that you've got some great articles about how to go about exporting. So there's the advanced steel. Just want to see if we can see it within the help files. There you can see it's opening it up. There's the add-ins for Revit, so it's under add-ins for Revit, where you can read about the advanced steel extension for Revit. And you'll see that you've got your settings dialog. So if you were interested in any one of those settings in more detail, you can go and read up on that over here. I know a lot of the detailing or the knowledge that you might have as a viewer is more extensive than mine as a application engineer. So because this might be within your purview, you would say, no, I understand this because I've now read a little bit about that. Right, so you might understand this more than what I do, depending on what you are doing. In this case, it's not that complicated, but I know that at least with the structural engineers, the models can get very complicated. All right, so you can read all about that in here. There's also a bit about the synchronization, the file transfer, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot that you can learn from the Revit help. Right, so we won't be focusing on that too much, but just never forget that you've got this help menu available to you and that it is very powerful. Most Autodesk has put an enormous amount of work into those help files, and it should be your first port of call before you even look at something like YouTube, just to learn and read up about what is going on there. So all of these members, they've changed the way in which the mapping works in 2022, and all of these members are those stock standard members, and the joins that join these members are also what has been generated from within Revit. So the nice thing here is that these joins and all of these members will now map between Revit and Advanced Steel. So let's do this. Let's export the SLMX file. You'll see that we'll use the advanced export default for UK. There is none here for South Africa, so UK is the closest to what we are. And then we'll go OK. And then we can save that file. I'm going to save it into the cloud. On this PC. So the Autodesk Cloud, if you're unfamiliar with that, it's a cloud-based platform that allows collaboration on the cloud with other team members. And in Revit specifically, it can connect you to teams that are distributed around the world. And I'm going to save that within my industry samples collaboration micrographics folder. So online, that will look as follows. Under our industry samples, within Micrographics. Okay, and there we can see that the software has unfortunately crashed. So when that happens to you, you'll find that you can relatively quickly recover from that. And you can go and download and install the Microsoft Access database engine for 2010. (64-bit). We'll install that quickly. I think this happens a lot when one installs and uninstalls programs from one's machine. I know I uninstalled Civil 3D this morning, and I suspect that it would have uninstalled the Microsoft Access database engine when I uninstalled Civil 3D. So you might run into the same problem if you are running this export for the first time. But note that it is quick to fix, in my case. And hopefully, if it happens to you, you can also quickly recover. Let's see if that worked. So again, I'm pointing towards this folder that's synchronized onto my hard drive from the cloud, and I'm saving that file. Okay, this time it seems to have exported without crashing, and that is because we installed the Microsoft Access 2010 database engine. Right, there we can now see the SMLX file that we've just exported. It's called Paul Warehouse SMLX, and there is the Revit file. This file is just a file that I've started keeping for myself, and that file over there, that was a advanced steel file that I've worked with earlier. But this is the file that we've exported, the pull warehouse SLMX. And you will also see that within your folders on your Autodesk docs, in the relevant company folder, and there is the SLMX file. You can install, download and install a package called 7-zip if you like. And with 7-zip you are able to open or extract rather the SLMX file. So this is what is contained within that compressed SLMX file. Within the contents, you will find an XML file. You might read up on this if you go into customization of your export. But what's interesting about this is you can open this with another freeware package called Notepad++. If you want to browse this file, then you can also install some tools for some plugins for XML tools, and the one that I use is Pretty Print, and that will then order your XML file so that you can read what is going on. And you'll see that the members, their names, are contained within this file as an export. So if we look at something like a lipped purlin, we search for that, you can use Control F. The M_str standard string, and there you can find the name that's going to be entered into the database for the members. There's the SAIPE and so on and so forth. We won't be going into too much detail with this, but this at least will give you a heads up as to what your Revit family is getting exported as. So it's getting exported into that steel markup language, which is a compressed file. You can open that using 7-zip and Notepad++. There you can go and see what's inside of that XML file. So this is then the file that will be read by Advanced Steel. Now, depending on where you are in the world, you might be accommodated better by the software. If you're in America, or if you're in England or Australia, you'll find a lot of work has been done on Advanced Steel. When you are in South Africa, you might find that initially upon startup, it will ask you what the country settings and configurations must be. So if you are in a country, for instance, where I am, like South Africa, maybe another country around the world with your own databases, then you might consider using international. And what many people do when they see a pop-up like this is they would say, don't show this again on startup. And if you want control over that, I'll show you in a moment where you can force that dialog to pop up every time. So we'll just wait for the software to initialize. Right. So most of what we'll be doing today will have to do with the management tools. This is a database interface, and you'll see that in your options you can force the country settings and configurations upon startup. Right. So just a note on the file structure of the databases. There are really two directions. The one would be from Revit to Advanced Steel, and the other one from Advanced Steel to Revit. I confess I don't understand the database structure as well as I should, but I can also help point you towards how to manage that. So within Program Data Autodesk, you'll find that there's an Advanced folder, and then for each version of Advanced Steel that you've had installed before, there will be a folder. The Advanced folder has a data, and then we've got these databases. You will see that the extension is .mdb, which is an Access database. If you have Access installed, you'll be able to open that database, and specifically, usually, we will look at something like the GTC mapping. That's where you'll find the names that were exported from Revit. Then we've got another folder, the Advanced Steel folder. And within the Advanced Steel of the version that we are working in, we can see different country names. So there's Australia, Great Britain, International, or just INT. That's the one that we'll be working with, because our setup for Advanced Steel is International. And then United States. So those are the options that we saw when we opened up Advanced Steel for the first time. And within the international database, within your steel sections, within data, you will find various databases. There you can see your GTC mapping, or your profile mappings. There you can see them as MDF. And you can see in the little explanation there, that is a SQL Server database engine. So Access will not open a SQL Server database. You'll have to install Microsoft Express tools or something similar to read those databases, to modify them, if you are interested in them. Or otherwise, you can also use the Advanced Steel management tools to open those SQL Server databases. And that is what we will do within here. Right, so I'm just going to close this default drawing that was opened and make sure that I start a new drawing from an Advanced Steel template that I might want to use. And now I need to bring in the Revit model. So that would be under the Export and Import dialog or tab. We find that we can import a Revit file. What this is really looking for is the SMLX file. I always get those letters mixed up. There is the pull warehouse file that we've just exported. And when we open this, we'll find that Advanced Steel might not necessarily recognize the sections that are being brought in. And then it will prompt us, what section do you want to map those other sections on? So here we can see, for instance, that the IPE AA160 I section was mapped onto a completely wrong member, or that's how Advanced Steel sees it. So what we need to do is to say, well, we recognize that it is an I section, so that at least is correct. But then we need to go and have a look at the sort of Revit family, or the type of section that it is, what standard is it. And in the case of South Africa, we need to go to all. Already you can see we've got Brazil and China and other countries listed there. South Africa is listed as SA, and there we'll see SAIPE. So that would be our I-beams. As soon as we do that, it also reads the sizes. And there we can see that we can map it onto the same size, in this case, the IPE AA160. This value of the mapping is now going to be written into a database which is external to this file. So in other words, it's going to add a value within your GTC mapping database within the International Steel Data database for Advanced Steel. As soon as you do this, it creates an entry into that database. Similar with the IPE 160. With the lipped channel, we might not be that successful, or I haven't been yet. Here we might look for something like a channel. There are other things that you can have a look through if you know exactly what you want, but there are also advanced workflows where you can bring very specific sections, even your own user-defined sections in. Now I'm just going to go with the channel, and I'm going to choose something that's closest to what I've got there, which is a 125 by 50. Channel cold. It's maybe a bit, let's have a look at all. What have we got under South Africa? Channels, cold channels, parallel flange channels. See, maybe we'll be maybe we'll be lucky there. There's 100 by 50 by 10. And there we can see the obsolete PFC 120. That's obsolete now. Let's go with 100 by 50 by 10. That now maps those flanges in. Those will be the purlins. The following section could not be converted. That will be a angle, which is also under South Africa, because I am in South Africa. There's equal angles, and we are looking at this 60 by 60 by 5. There we go. Just wait for it to complete. And then let's have a look at what that has done, the comparison between Advanced Steel and Revit. Okay, so there we can see our purlins, our eye sections, and the joins that have come in. And you'll see that Advanced Steel recognizes those joins and allows you to modify them further. So they're interchangeable. For argument's sake, you've now mapped, or one might have mapped the purlins onto the wrong section. What to do next? Let's suppose you want to map it differently. Well, you'd need to understand the underlying databases and fiddle with them before you can get it to map correctly. Like I said, I don't understand that in detail yet, but I can show you at least how do you change your selection that you are using for export. So you've made a mistake and you want to correct that mistake. The process is twofold. Let's just for the moment go and save this drawing. I'm going to save this drawing in my cloud location. I'll call this Paul Warehouse again. It's a DWG. And that file will now sit on the cloud shortly. I've saved it one folder up. There we go, let's save it there. Okay, so there's our Paul Warehouse.dwg, which has just been saved by me. That is reflected on the cloud. It's busy uploading onto the cloud. All right. So I want to change my purlin mapping. This is how I go about it. I need to open my management tools. And go to the table editor. On the table editor, I need to open a database and browse to the Advanced Steel International Steel data. The specific one that I'm interested in is the GTC mapping.mdf. You might also need to look at some of the other databases depending on what you are doing. The GTC mapping MDF is now opened. And again, within here there are tables. Some of these tables might be relevant to you. The usual ones would be GTC profile conversion, the profile exports conversion. Those two are the main ones that we are concerned with these members that are mapping through. The key is just the number of the entry within the database. It's quite easy for us to recognize our sections, because if we scroll all the way down to the bottom of the table, we'll see that our entries have started at 22,000. Everything before that was 10,000 or 11,000. What did it start with? 1. Okay, so everything from 22,000 onwards are the mappings that you have applied. And the advice that you'll read is also to have a look at the profile conversion table. And again, if you scroll to the bottom and you did input entries, then you'll find that there would be an entry way down at the bottom of the table that you should be looking at. But in any case, in our profile exports conversion, at the bottom of the table, we will now find that we've got the cold lip channels, which we need to change. Now, if you knew exactly what the wording or the name was of the channel that you wanted to use, then you would input that here. You can, if you click on this, you're able to edit that value, and it will go and look for that value within the relevant table. You also see some references to the object type, the application that's exported it, and so on. But in our case, because we want to keep things simple, we're not customizing the platform completely, we can learn how to use this. We can select that row, 22,003, and if you click on this little blue button at the beginning of the row, and you right click, then you're able to delete that row. Now, the mapping has been deleted from the database, but it is still within the memory of the application. So what you need to do now is close the application, and then open the application, the Advanced Steel platform. Again, we're going to go with international. And now we can open our save drawing, Paul Warehouse. And because that line is missing from the table for the lipped burden, it will once again tell us that we need to map it onto the correct section. And it will give us another opportunity to map the steel section correctly. And that will happen when hopefully this works. We're going to synchronize again between that model and our model. We're just waiting for the application to respond. You can see it's busy working at the bottom over there. Okay, so the synchronization doesn't give you that option. Just bring it into a new file. And there we can see the lip channel. Once you bring it in, the import conversion is now different. So if you wanted to do that with a synchronization of a file, you might have to delve into the database itself. That will make it more tricky, but it's doable. Again, in this case, we're dealing with the channels, South African channels. And then we choose the relevant channel. Once you've made alterations to the model, let's suppose we take out some of these members. Quickly synchronize to the cloud. So I can recover later. And then export into an SMLX again, steel markup language. We'll export it as a new file. Just append 2 to the file name. Let's see if this updates. And we can now synchronize, load, pull warehouse 2, there is a filter that we should be able to apply. We deleted some beams. Okay, so it actually recognizes quite a lot of them. But let's just go ahead and apply all of them. You can also write out a report. You'll see it does have an ID. So in Revit, if you knew which one you were working with, you should be able to get its ID from there. We'll give you its ID. You might identify members like that. Then we obviously need to select the elements that we want to apply that to. I'm just going to select everything and then say apply all actions. Okay, so for some other reason, there we go. There it's updated the file. And there you can see those two members have been deleted, now corresponding to the model in Revit. The reverse process works much the same. So let's go ahead and delete two more members. Let's save our file. And then let's export this model. 3. And then let's see if we can update our Revit model. So on the add-ins, on the advanced steel extension, we can now synchronize in the other direction, of course. It looks exactly the same as it does in advanced steel. Let's apply all actions, unknown types. Okay, we obviously don't have the correct size in there. And then with the equal angles, those will be, see if we can load the right one there. So load family. Those will be a beam. So we will look towards C drive program data, Autodesk, Romeo Victor Tango, RVT 2022, Libraries, English, South Africa, structural framing, because it's a beam, steel, SA specific, IPE, and then we want to have the IPE AA 160. Okay. We've mapped that correctly now, and then with the beam, that looks to be an equal angle 4 by 4 by 3/8. Then we could go with an equal angle. It seems to have used a 4" for some other reason. I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but you'd have to map, what's that, 25.4 by 4. That should be around about 100 by 100 by 3 or 4 or something like that. You can then also load that family. Equal angle. Let's quickly work that out. 25.4 divided by 8 and multiplied by 3. It's about 10. So we're looking at about 100 by 100 by 10. There we go. First one. Okay, let's just see what went wrong there. Apply all actions. Let's refresh first of all. Let's apply all actions. Okay, so we're waiting for these two members to be deleted. Let's just try this export again. We've now got our advanced steel file. We've deleted those two members. We've saved the file. We'll export. Let's try this again one last time. We'll export. We'll call that Paul Warehouse 4. And let's synchronize that with, there we go. It just took a bit of time in Revit to generate. Alright, so those two members are now deleted and we've got that opening back to where it was. I see we've run out of time. It's been interesting. It's been an interesting journey of discovery and learning for me as well, to learn about the advanced steel. You can see it does take a bit of time for everything to update, but hopefully this can also get you started on using advanced steel and Revit together. Getting the mapping correct would be the most important thing, after which you can easily work between the advanced steel for detailing and for manufacturing, and the Revit model where we are constructing the sort of matchstick BIM model. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. I'll put our contact details on the screen shortly. We've basically been through this PowerPoint. Please feel welcome to contact us at any one of these branches within South Africa. And until next time, enjoy Revit.